G'day guys, welcome back to SuperCoach with DR. For today's video, we've got the Collingwood team review post-Marsh series. So we've got a few SuperCoach relevant options there. I know there's a few names on there. A few of them I think we can get through pretty quickly because they won't be too relevant this year. But we do need to discuss a few of the other options that are in front of us from the Maggies. So the first one who I think we do need to discuss is Jack Crisp at 482,800 there in our defensive line. So coming into his 9th season now, I hated losing Crisp. He was playing some really good footy for the Lions at the time as an inside midfielder. And I tell you what, he was a bloody good set of steak knives. And the steak knives seem to come with a minimum 5-year guarantee because he hasn't missed a single game in the last 5 years. He's as durable as they come. Look, with Crisp, he's more of a total points pick rather than, an overall average pick. So for that, mid to high 80s average to significantly increase, I think, I'd need to see a sign that indicates some sort of boost, like a change of role or, obvious improvement in some sort of a weakness to their game. And I think Crisp has addressed a little bit of a weakness there. So he scored the 2 tons in the Marsh series, collecting 28 and 23 disposals coming off halfback. But what really impressed me the most, and this is something I think that he needed to work on, was how he used the ball. He used it really, really well. That's something that, I think's held him back a little bit in the past, is that ball use. But he looked really, really clean in the 2 games that I watched him play anyway. So, look, Chris could be a real smoky and a nice, durable pod. I'm looking elsewhere myself, as I think he'll average probably, in my opinion, between 84 to 90. But look, he could take it to that next level. I've got him a level below, a Sicily Luke Ryan type of pick. But again, he could really prove me wrong and really, really break out this season. I don't really see it coming. But if we look at what he produced and what he scored in the Marsh series, then there's some things to like about this pick. But as I said, I'm not going there. But at 482, he may be one of those players that you might look to put even in place of a Houston, given the fact that things have changed with the buys now with him. I do endorse having a strong look at him, but as I said, I couldn't do it myself. Our next one there we got is Jeremy Howe. Tell you what, he got a few people talking about his performance in Game 2. Played out of his skin, 25 possessions, 88% efficiency, had 11 marks, led the Pies for tackles, ending up with 6, scored 134 points for his efforts, and at the very least, he's put his name up for discussion and some consideration. At 431,900, comes at a pretty decent price, but I think you'd probably be looking at him to have a career best season to make this a really successful pick, in my opinion anyway. His career best season average is 94 back in 2017, but he did average in the low 90s for 3 consecutive years, so like Crisp, he seems to fit just below that elite defender category. Last year only managed an average of 79.5, so a bit of a drop off there. Look, I think he can make a little bit of money on his starting price, but it also expects to have a few scores in the 60s and 70s along the way there as well. If you think he'll finish in the top 8 defenders, then lock him in. But I rate a few other selections ahead of Howe, so could be a sneaky pick, but again, just like Crisp, not for me. Now, Johnny Noble, the son of David Noble, who's up there at Brisbane, could be a saviour for our backlines, I think. I must admit that pre-Marsh wasn't even on my radar, but has bolted into SuperCoach relevance, I think, now. With the lack of viable rookies at this stage, he's a man we really need to look at. I think he's now locked down a spot in their best 22. Managed to get a fair bit of the peel in the Marsh series and averaged 76 points over both matches from about 83% game time. Used the ball at around 84%, which is really, really good. Now got some experience under his belt as well. And if he can average, just say 75 to 80, then he could be a nice little stepping stone, I think. The downside of the pick is the fact that he's priced over 200k, and we'd love one of these 117 to 123k guys to really, really come through. But the upside looks to be at this stage to be his job security and pre-season form, obviously. So it wouldn't be the worst decision, I think, running a Noble and a Zerk Thatcher anywhere from your D4 to sort of D6 at this stage with the lack of rookies that we've got there. So someone that's highly, highly in consideration for me and, yeah, is a high chance to make my side. And the last one to round out the back line there is Keane. So, look, excuse the pun, but I was pretty keen on this bloke after game one. A very, very respectable 86. Did get three free kicks in there, but had 3 tackles with 8 of his 14 disposals contested. Played well for Collingwood in the back line there, but again, we didn't see him feature in game 2, so this can only lead me to believe that he won't really be in consideration for round 1. After the first round of Marsh games, I had Greaves and Keane at D7 and D8 pretty comfortably, I thought. Look, they've really, really impressed enough to at least get another shot, in the second round of the games. But, a lot can change in a week, and a couple of these lower price defensive rookies may not be making any coin early in the season. So, not for now, Keane, but, maybe at some stage. On the midfield, Adam Treloar, most expensive Collingwood mid at 615,800, was looking like a nice potential premium pod before his injury, but I'll be pretty quick with this one. Just don't pick him. Hammies are no good at the moment. You'd want to see, a few more moles in the legs before even considering him. So hopefully it won't be a recurring injury for him, but I'd highly advise not to start him. The man next to him, I'd written off before the start of the season. We used to refer to him as Dependleberry, and for good reason. He was a staple in midfields for years and been one of the most consistent scorers we've seen, I think, in the history of SuperCoach. He hasn't averaged under 103.5 since 2007, so the old man went bug UDR, collected lazy 14 disposals in the first quarter of the game against St Kilda. So, on that evidence, looks like he's still got it. I think he's still the best midfielder at Collingwood, to be quite honest, and I don't think we've seen anyone in the game, maybe a select few, that seem to have as much time and space as Pendlebury, but I'm looking for guys coming into the peak of their career, looking to really increase their scoring output, and I just don't think that Pendles can reach, those lofty heights again. Last 5 years, averages have read 116.2, 118.7, still fantastic, but then we go down to 106.7, 103.5, and then 104.3, so look, the numbers suggest that his average will be maybe tick over 100, but that still wouldn't be good enough for me if we're picking him in our starting side. So, absolute champion of the game. One of the unluckiest players, I think, not to take home a Brownlow medal in the last decade. But yeah, I just can't bring myself to select him in SuperCoach anymore. But thanks for everything that you've done for our teams in the past, Pendles. Good on you, mate. Taylor Adams, loved him as a defender a couple of years ago, but not as a mid-only selection. Injury prone. He's only managed to play one full season, and believe it or not, he's only averaged over 98 once in his career. That was back in 2017, in that great year he had where he averaged around 107. So I can't see him massively improving on his average, and I tip him to end with a season average of about 95 to 100. So yeah, big no from me there. Steel side bottom comes around, 10k cheaper than Adams, but again, still wouldn't look to pick him. Never been an uber premium. And never will be SuperCoach wise, but look, super player, absolutely elite on both sides, great to watch, but a bit of a non-selection for mine is side bottom. Rupert Wills, big bodied midfielder, really strong sort of a bloke there, 337,000. The price is just too awkward. I think he can push his average up to the 80s, but at that price, we don't want to spend that in the midfield. We want to be spending, a 337 in our back line or in our forward lines, I think. So just too awkward there at the price. Good old Phil in at 242,700. Haven't seen him in the pre-season, so I'm not too sure if he's injured or if he just didn't make the side for some reason. He's out of form, hasn't had the best pre-season. I'm not too sure about that one. But he was someone that I was looking at, just had him on in the back of my mind, just on the watch list, just in case we needed to look at an option like this in the midfield at around the 200 to 250 mark. But doesn't look like he'll be any good for us at this stage anyway. Josh Dacos, well, geez, yeah, the old Collingwood supporters would love seeing another Dacos running around. Really good game on the weekend, 83 points, 22 possessions, used the ball well, kicked a goal, once one kick to handball ratio. So, yeah, really good game, as I said. But, if we're looking at the price there again, that 259, I just don't think that he's going to be relevant. You'd really want him to be scoring at least in the 80s each week. I think if you're looking to pay that price, that may be asking a little bit too much. Maybe, mid-70s could be okay. But with me, I'm just not looking at someone around the 250 mark in the midfield. And Tyler Brown there had a nice little 65 in game 1, 73% game time, followed by only a 35 from 39% time on ground. So probably not looking like a round 1 option, I don't think. but possibly an in-season downgrade option. And remember, you do have Callum Brown there as well, so don't get confused between the two brothers there as well. Jay Rantel, again, I don't think that we'll see him round one. I was pretty keen on Brisbane to pick up this bloke as well in the draft. You know, a real running machine, great endurance beast. Someone I think who might have a bright future in the game, but I don't think that he'll be playing round one. And Trent Bianco, well, I think almost every team had him at either D7 or D8 for most of the pre-season. We'll be hoping, more expecting, I'm not too sure, probably more hoping than expecting him to play at 117,300 with that mid-defensive swing. Look, it would have been really, really handy to see him play some huge minutes in the pre-season. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. He won't be in round one, where I'd be pretty shocked if he was. But again, I've said this like a couple of blokes here, possibly an in-season downgrade option. But yeah, not too confident on Bianco. But hopefully for our sides anyway, he'll get a run at some stage of the season. Brodie Grundy's still one of the biggest locks in the game, I think. Some people start to panic a little bit after he only scored the 64 in the last Marsh game from 86% game time. But he just had a bit of a down day, I think. Gave 3 free kicks away, only used the ball at 61%, which is very un-Grundy-like. So I'm not getting scared off from one bad preseason game. He's clearly in the top 2 rucks in the comp and will most likely feature as my captain or vice-captain for many of the rounds this year, I think. So automatic lock for me, not leaving aside Grundy. And Darcy Cameron, interesting pick this one. So in game 1, went bang, nice 107 whilst covering for Grundy. 2 goals, 20 hit-outs, 10 contested possessions. He used the ball well, over 91% efficiency. You know, his rookie price can be selected as a ruck, as a forward, DPP status obviously. So what's not to like about the pick? Well, I think his job security and how he fits in the Collingwood structure. You know, how many of Reid, Cox and Cameron can they play? You know, 1, maybe 2 max. And as a neutral supporter, I'd really have him ahead of Cox. But, you know, I don't know what Buckley's plans are. I think Cox is pretty woeful on the weekend against the Saints. But, again, I'm just not sure if he starts round 1 or not. But if he is selected in round 1, then he'll most likely be in my side, I think, Cameron. On the forward line, Jordan De Goey, so I think one of the most talented players in the comp and one of those blokes that has the potential to rip a game apart in, you know, a 5 to 10 minute period. When he plays through the midfield, he looks great, but he's also one of the most damaging forwards in the game as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him rise to the next level and end up as a top 8 forward for averages. But I'd need to be confident that he'd play, I suppose, at the bare minimum, a 65-35 forward mid split. You know, with Treloar looking unlikely at the start of the season, that may allow De Goey to increase his midfield minutes in the short term anyway. But when Collingwood have their full complement of midfielders available, I'm just not sure what his mid-forward split would be. If any Pie supporters have a better idea about him, then yeah, let us know down in the comment section below, because if he is looking to significantly increase his midfield minutes, I think he could be a really, really great selection. As I said, has all the potential in the world, but probably not as a forward if he's spending the majority of his time forward. Look, don't get me wrong, he can still score really well. And as I said, we'll be looking to see, I think, a few really nice scores from him throughout the season. But I just don't know if he'll be able to score consistently enough if he is playing predominantly as a forward. In regards to the Marsh series, pretty much identical games, score-wise anyway, in time on ground. First one, 71 from 72% time on ground, booted the 3 goals there. Second game, 75 from 73% time on ground, only the 1 goal, but managed to increase his disposal count there. So not terrific numbers. I know he probably will increase that time on ground. We understand that as well. So he'd be more looking towards maybe the 80s there. But yeah, look, for me, I'm not going to, look to select him to start off with anyway. He's one of those blokes that I think if he's looking to just go bang, then I'll just look to get him into my side straight away. But yeah, definitely won't be starting with Jordan De Goey. Callum Brown, mentioned before, don't get him mixed up with Tyler. So he's a 370,900 forward there. Look, I think he's a pretty tough nut. Look, if he can be half as tough as his dad, Gavin, who I think it was Gary Lyon who was saying the other day on the radio that he's the toughest bloke that he's ever played against, one of the most courageous blokes you'll ever see out in a footy field, then I think, yeah, he'll go a long way, Callum Brown. But, yeah, 370,000, yeah, just a bit of a nothing pick there, and he'd need to absolutely explode for that to be a good pick. And I'd much prefer someone like a Brayshaw or a Stephen, who are right around that 370 mark there. The last fella, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. We'll call him AB. Again, 123,900 there. But like many of these rookies, I highly doubt that we'll see him in round one. But again, keep on repeating it. Hopefully, during the season, he may come in for a little bit of a stretch of games. So that's the Collingwood review. Let me know what you think, guys. In my team currently at the moment, I've got one Collingwood player in Brodie Grundy, and I think that, yeah, I'll be in the same boat as lots of people there in selecting Grundy. Darcy Cameron, if he's selected round one, he'll most likely make his way into my side. Not interested in any of the forwards there. Not interested in any of the midfielders. Noble there, I'd love to be able to fit him into my side. I've got Zerk Thatcher in at the moment, and I've got Robertson and rolling with Brander currently. So I've downgraded. I did have Noble in, as I said, but I've downgraded him now to a Brander in order to go back up from Oliver to Jack McRae again, because I had to go down to accommodate a few things about a week ago there, and just wasn't comfortable having McRae in my side. So yeah, let me know what you think as always, guys, down there in the comments section. Thanks for the support. Hope it's going well. I'll see you in the next team review. Cheers, guys. Bye.